And we'll have more from Jody in China next week. I tērā wiki I rongo ake ai koutou mō Carl Tauri, me tana pakanga kia puta he whakapāha whānui kia rātou I tū kinohia, I a rātou e tamariki ana I roto I ngā whare ka wanatanga mō ngā haututu me ngā pani. Hei a kōko ake nei ka āta wānangatia e a tātou manuhiri, e tahi o ngā take nui I mahuta ake I taua pūrongo. Arā e kai whakawā Carolyn Henwood o te ratonga whakarongo āwhina tū Mataiti, he mea whakatū taua ratonga hei tauawhi I ngā amuamu tūkino. Rāua ko Ken Clearwater, he kai tautāwhi I ngā marurenga tūkino. Engari tuatahi anei te kōrero a Carl Tauri I te rāwiki.
I experienced hidings, physical abuse. The worst for me is the mental abuse.
Carl was just 11 when he was sent to the Epuni Boys' Home in Lower Hutt for petty crimes like stealing a chocolate bar.
It was just violent, violent, violent. You felt it, you smelt it, you lived it, you knew it.
40 years later, Carl has received a written apology and compensation from the Ministry of Social Development.
I still feel there's a liability. I still feel that there's really no real resolution. You know, when we talk about liability to child abuse, crimes committed against me that have been actually admitted to in a letter of apology, oh, come on. It should be an open forum. It's got to be out made public.
So what do you want from the government? They've given you an apology and they've given you some compensation. Isn't that enough?
It's time state put their hands up for the crimes that were committed against us.
Carl raised some very important issues, and to discuss further we have Ken Clearwater. Kia ora, Clem.
Kia ora.
And in Wellington, Judge Henwood. Tēnā hoki koe, Judge Henwood.
Kia ora, good morning.
Kia ora. Let's start with you first, Judge Henwood. We've heard the story that Carl Tauri has delivered to all of us right across the motu now, and you've been hearing all kinds of stories right through your career. What do people want when they come to you, to your service, the Confidential Listening and Assistance Service?
Yeah, well, a confidential listening and assistance service was set up as an alternative to litigation in the court. It's a part of a whole of government response. So we've seen, nearly 700 people, and we have many more hundred to see. So when they come, they want to be listened to, and we try and help them in their lives now.
And what exactly can you do for them?
Well, we try and get we do get their files from the Ministry of Social Development and set up counselling, and then try on for each individual person, after listening and noting their concerns, thinking creatively, like what could we do now to try and help that person gain some more wellness.
Is listening enough? I mean, in Carl's situation, it took him 6 years just to get close to an apology. Is that good enough?
Well, listening won't ever be enough. It's only just one part of the story, because children who have been damaged and have concerns have enormous issues to confront, and sometimes their lives have been totally destroyed in some cases.
Okay, let's bring you in now, Ken, because you've worked with victims right from the beginning of your career right through now. You're working with victims all the time. Is the resolution process working?
It's a process, and unfortunately I don't think it's a good enough process. It's a start. To me, it's still a government cover-up of the institutional abuse that happened.
What do you mean by that, a government cover-up?
Well, I think that what we need to do is we need to have an inquiry, and the government don't want to have an inquiry because they know that it'll open up a huge can of worms for the children that have been in care in this country, similar to what's happened in Australia and Ireland. And so I see this process as one way of them not having to deal with the whole, and I think many people are going to miss out on it.
Is Carl's story typical of what you come across?
Carl's is hugely typical. With the men that we work with, of course, because we work with men who've been sexually abused in childhood, that's why they come to us. So they've been sexually violated within care, and so I look on it that these children as they were, we see Carl as an adult at the moment, but you don't see him as what he was when he was a little boy. So what people have to remember is these were children in care of the government, and while they were severely tortured and sexually violated, and so we've got to stop pretending that a little thing happened, a huge thing happened, and until we have an inquiry, we're not going to know the full extent of it.
Judge Henwood, what do you think of Carl's call for a public government apology?
Well, a lot of people do want an apology, but these are political matters. I'm listening to Ken Clearwater, and he's making some very strong allegations, and I'm not here to defend the government. But the difficulty that people have had is actually proving, the facts of any particular case, and that's where the court cases have stalled, because it's all so long ago, and where is the evidence? But New Zealand hasn't had an inquiry to cover...
Would you support an inquiry then?
It's not my position to say that. Difficulty is that I'm a judge and not a politician. But it's true that we don't know the full extent of what happened, particularly in the institutions. And you've got to remember there's also a large amount of people come to see us through placements in foster care and psychiatric hospitals. So the extent of it is enormous, and there are literally thousands of people involved. So it is important.
Well, it's interesting we are talking about a public government apology, because in 2009 the Australian government admitted it had failed thousands of children in state care, including thousands taken there from Great Britain.
Today they gathered to hear one word.
For these failures to offer proper care to the powerless, the voiceless and the most vulnerable, we say sorry.
Ken, how do we get our government to do that?
By having an inquiry into care, and the moment we do that, then they will realise the damage that's been done. The people can come forward and disclose their stories, and then they can give that apology, and they need it. The people that have been in care need it. One of the huge things, like Judge Henwood said, and I've got to admit I admire the work that the judge is doing under the frame, that work that she's got. And so what's happening, these people need to come forward, tell their stories, and the stories have to be made public. This is really, really important. The terms of reference at the moment is that they're not allowed to tell the stories. I think the confidentiality of the people is very important if that's what they want, but their stories have to be told to the people of New Zealand. The people of New Zealand need to know what these children went through under state-sanctioned care, and that's the most important thing. And then once we've had that inquiry, then we can work through all the other stuff.
Yeah, well, I would like, I want to jump in there, because we have had our terms of reference changed so that we can report to the government common themes and legacies of effect from the stories that we had. So that's a big gain, and by the end of this year, the government will have that information. Whether they choose to release it or not will be a political decision, but they will have data from us. You have to realise that it's not findings, because we don't make findings, but we have gathered data, and I think it's important for those that make policy in the future to know this, because many people that come to see us say they want to have things changed for the next generation of children, and so we want it used in that way as well.
Judge Henwood, I think the other point that Carl Tody was trying to make was that the state care system is actually creating criminals in a way. You spend many hours in court sentencing people like this. Do you think that's a common thread? Do you think that there are criminals being created within the state care system?
Well, this would be my personal opinion, and speaking as a district court judge, I'd say yes to that. I'd say yes to that in many cases, and I think that's something that's come out and it's become more clear to me as I've listened. Because if you go into care and you run away, say, even if you've gone in for care and protection reasons, and you might run away or try to get back home or whatever, you then may get locked up and the police pick you up, and then your situation escalates. Then you may graduate into a gang and then into crime. And sometimes the children in the past have been mixed up, care and protection children with offenders, and that's a dangerous strategy when that happens, because you get contaminated by, learning to steal and become on the wrong side of the law and not reach your potential. So there are many issues.
So you agree that the state care system is creating criminals, so what on earth do we do about it?
Well, I don't agree that the state care system is making criminals, but some children do have that outcome. What are we doing about it? A lot. I think there's a white and green paper being written now by the Minister trying to look into all these matters to see if the care can be delivered in a better way.
Ken, what do you think we're doing about it?
Well, the Green Paper, I think, is literally a political football. I think that agencies like myself and many agencies throughout this country that have been working with children over the last 15 to 20 years, we've been trying to tell government, national and Labor, what's needed down on the coalface to do this work, and we've been denied that. We've been not denied the funding and the resources. So what's happening now is now they're asking us tell them what we've been telling them for 20 years. So I think it'll be very much like the law reform bill where all the work that we do have to sit down and do the submissions goes into government. They'll go through it, and then because it's political, they'll take out the bits that suit them. And so I don't really see this as the answer.
So this inquiry that you're talking about, you're going to need a key politician to champion the cause, aren't you? Is there anyone in the scope at the moment that might
no,
do
there
that?
isn't. Somebody did suggest to me Chris Finlayson, I think when I met with David Carter just recently, that I said that we desperately needed somebody in Parliament that can help us. He suggested Chris. Chris said some things last week on Marae Investigates that I sort of wasn't happy with, but I think that's because he hasn't had the information he needs, and I think if he sat down with likes of myself and the people doing this, he will see how big this problem is.
It is a huge problem and something that we need to discuss further, but thank you very much for your time this morning, King Clearwater. Judge Henwood, thank you very much from down in Wellington. Kia ora kōrua.
Kia ora. Thank you.